Okay, example 3. Determine the nature of the roots for the equation 16x squared plus 8x plus 1 equals 0. Now, notice what it's asking us for. It doesn't ask us for the answers. It says find the nature of the roots. First off, the word root means answer. So, what are the answers like in this problem, the solutions to the problem? What values of x make this equal to 0? What do they look like? Okay? When they ask you that specific question, your answer is either going to be 2 real roots, 1 real root, or 2 complex roots. When they ask for the nature of the roots, those are what the answers are. It's like a multiple choice problem at this point. Those are your only choices. There's a way to determine which one of those choices it is, and it's based on the value of b squared minus 4ac. So, when I'm given the question to determine the nature of the roots of any quadratic function, I'm going to evaluate b squared minus 4ac, which is the part underneath the square root in the quadratic formula. If b squared minus 4ac is a positive number, I'm going to get 2 real roots. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, I'm going to get 1 real root. And if b squared minus 4ac is a negative number, I'm going to get 2 complex roots. So, now I know it's a multiple choice question, and I know how to determine which choice I'm supposed to pick based on the problem that I'm looking at. I just have to evaluate b squared minus 4ac and ask myself, is it positive, negative, or 0? Okay, let me explain why. Some people don't understand why, so if I explain why, hopefully it makes sense. What we're doing with the b squared minus 4ac in the quadratic formula is we're doing the square root of it, right? And we have a plus or minus sign in front of it, right? So we're either adding or subtracting some value from negative b. And it's over 2a, right? So there's my whole formula. But I'm just looking at the top, really. All right? If b squared minus 4ac is positive, I'm doing the square root of a positive number. The square root of a positive number is real. Doesn't always evaluate very nicely. Square root of 4 equals 2. Square root of 9 equals 3. Those are all pleasant. The square root of 2 is 1.414196, something like that. So it goes on forever and ever and ever. But it's still real. It exists in the real world. It can happen. All right? It's a real number. So if b squared minus 4ac is positive, we're doing the square root of a positive number, creating some real number that has some value, right? Not 0. If I take negative b and add something bigger than 0 and subtract something bigger than 0, I'm going to get 2 different answers, right? So I'm getting 2 real roots. They're real because this is real, and I'm getting 2 of them because I'm adding and subtracting a number from negative b that's going to cause 2 different answers. The square root of 0 equals 0. 0 is real. It really exists in the real world. If you don't believe me, in wintertime, I'm sure it'll be 0 degrees at least once. That's when 0 is real. You know, put on a coat, right? But 0 is real. And so it says 1 real root, not 2. Here's why it's 1. Negative b plus 0 is negative b. Negative b minus 0 is negative b. You get the same answer twice, so it counts as 1 answer. So 1 real root when it equals 0. And finally, the square root of a negative number is imaginary. It's not possible to get the square root of a negative number, so it's an imaginary number. It doesn't exist in the real world. When you have an imaginary number added or subtracted to a real number, that's called a complex number. So something plus or minus something I, plus something I and minus something I is 2 different answers, so 2 complex roots. So again, all we have to do to establish the answer to the question, one of those 3 choices, is evaluate b squared minus 4ac and ask ourselves, is it positive, is it 0, is it negative? Once you establish what it is, then you can tell me which one of those 3 choices it is. So the whole problem that I'm going to work out here, you obviously don't have to do that much work on your homework. What your homework's going to look like is going to be this. I've got my equation, right? I'm going to identify what a, b, and c are. Notice they're all positive, right? Positive 16, positive 8, positive 1. Okay. It has to be everything equals 0. If it doesn't look like that, you need to move everything over so it does. All right. But once everything equals 0, identify A, B, and C, and then just evaluate b squared minus 4ac. So b squared is going to be positive 64 minus 4 times 16 times 1. 64 is 64. 4 times 16 is 64 times 1 is 64. We're subtracting because there's only one minus. 64 minus 64 equals 0. So I know that b squared minus 4ac equals 0. And if b squared minus 4ac equals 0, I get 1 real root. This is the answer. This is what I want to see on your paper that led you to that answer. So I want to see where you've evaluated it so I know what your number is. I want to see that. And I want to see how you interpreted that answer when it asks for the nature of the roots.